All right, welcome to another session of reading comprehension. If you remember, we had a session yesterday wherein I told you the nitty-gritties, the things that you have to keep in mind as far as reading comprehension is concerned. We discussed 3-4 things. I'll rewind them. I'll repeat them for you. We first spoke about the topic, the subject matter. We should familiarize ourselves with as much course content as possible. Different topics is what we should be considering. Second, we spoke about language and grammar. Language and grammar can best be improved through extensive reading. And then we spoke about if a passage is lengthy, what do we need to increase? We need to have a good speed. How do we increase our reading speed? By consistently reading. These were the 3 aspects that we discussed yesterday, and the solution to all of them was reading itself, right? So I'm not going to repeat what we did yesterday, but rather move on to something new. I have about 3 more passages here from previous year's IPMAT exams. Though it is not the major constituent of the examination, but it is a constant constituent of the examination. So without further ado, let's get started. I'll show you the first passage, then we'll discuss the questions. Like always, I'll show you the questions first for some of you who want to see the questions first, and then we'll talk about the question. Then we'll talk about the passage, right? So there we go. This is the first passage. So from what I can see, it talks about the training in logic and rhetoric was meant to have privileged young men recognize spurious arguments and facts. Okay, how to read the passage, we'll come back to it later. For now, let's take a look at the questions. This is the question, first one. The next question. The next one. Okay, let's read the passage now. You have 5 minutes to read the passage. Minute you have. So, okay, let's read the passage. The passage basically talks about fake news, which is a very common phenomenon nowadays. It's not a very difficult passage, in fact, a rather easy one. So let's see. From ancient Rome to the Victorian era, a training in logic and rhetoric. Rhetoric is persuasive use of language. A training in logic and rhetoric was meant to help privileged young men recognize spurious arguments and facts. Spurious is fake. Times have changed, but contemporary Italy is determined that its youth are prepared, as their ancient counterparts were, to engage meaningfully with the present day worship of the forum, social media. At the end of October, 8,000 Italian schools will teach their students how to spot fake news through a program developed with the help of journalists as well as tech giants Google and Facebook. In Israel, the University of Haifa is launching a course titled Fake News. The purpose of these courses is to ensure that public debate, particularly during election campaigns, is not hijacked by vested interest. Vested interest is hidden agendas. Since the US presidential election in 2016, the specter of Russia and its use of online propaganda has loomed large over public discourse in the West. Specter is like a ghost. In other parts of the world too, doctored images is fake, created, and blatant lies have been published by news websites. Given the speed with which information is shared online, the damage is already done by the time a fake story is exposed. The voters of tomorrow certainly need to be armed with the ability to sift bare facts. Sift is separate. Sift bare facts from motivated fiction. The effects of social media on the formation of opinion, however, go far beyond fake news. Traditional or legacy media is ordered by a need for balance. A newspaper, for example, has sections that deal with politics, crime, sports, the arts, etc. There is, at least in principle, an attempt to tell both sides of a story in each report. On social media, the only editor is the user herself. Like if you're reading something on social media, you are the editor because you see how it is. You don't know whether it's real or is it fake. That's what they mean. On social media, the only editor is the user herself. Algorithms ensure that people see more of what they like, that biases are reinforced rather than countered. I'm sure you've encountered this, that you click on something that you want to see, its ad will keep on reappearing. Fake news is certainly a crucial aspect of online propaganda. But for young citizens to form opinions based on multiple viewpoints, they need to consciously seek out more than they are comfortable with. I think it's a fair point. It's a good passage to start with. As I said, not very difficult, but let's get on with the questions. The writer of the passage suggests that the purpose of education in early times was very different from what it is now. That's not what the passage is suggesting. There are similarities in the aims of education in early times and those of today. Yes, we can say that. Recognize spurious arguments and facts. That's what happened earlier, and now we're launching programs to do the same. So B could be a probable answer. C says the purpose of education in early times was to help students attain a position of privilege. No, we don't know whether they needed to attain privilege. Yes, we've spoken about privileged students, but that's not the purpose. As times have changed, the basis of education has expanded. It has, but that's not what the passage is suggesting. Clearly, B. The passage points out that an important difference between traditional media and social media is that social media reaches more people. That's not what the passage is it is true, but that's not what the passage is pointing out. Traditional media tries to present different points of view. Yes, you can see towards the end it says traditional or legacy media is ordered by a need for balance. A newspaper, for example, has sections that deal with politics, crime, sports, darts, etc., so on and so forth. So B looks good. Social media is more balanced in its reports. We can't say that. It is easier to spread fake stories through traditional media. Quite the contrary. Direct question. Social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinions in readers through its choice of news items which are presented. Like they try to reinforce things which you see as we were talking about towards the end. Right. That biases are reinforced rather than countered. Algorithms ensure that. So it's choice of news items which are presented. So biases are reinforced by social media. It's balanced reporting of wide-ranging stories. There's no mention of the balance. Its ability to guide the reader to motivated conclusions. We don't know that. The creation of interest by using dubious facts. Okay. There is a creation of dubious facts, but we don't know whether the interest is being generated by them or not. A. Vested interest. I think I've already given out the answer. Vested is something which happens only for your purpose, your own sake. The antonym for spurious. Guys, we said spurious was fake. So the opposite will be genuine. The writer of the passage calls social media the present day version of the Roman Forum because it is a space for carrying out political propaganda, not just political propaganda, discussing ideas. Yes, discussing ideas for sure. She says nurturing political ambitions, no, spreading spurious arguments. There is, okay, present day social media is spreading spurious arguments, but the question is, writer of the passage calls social media the present day version of the Roman Forum. What is the similarity between the two? They both are meant to discuss ideas. Okay. Next passage. This is the passage. Take a look at it. I'll show you the questions. The first question. The second question. The third question. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. I think that would be it. Let's read the passage now. You have 5 minutes. Your time starts now. All right. Very interesting passage, guys. It talks about human nature, talks about greed, so to say. Supposing half a dozen or a dozen men were cast ashore from a wreck of an uninhabited island and left to their own resources, and one, of course, according to his capacity, would be set to one business and one to another. The strongest to dig and cut the wood, and to build huts for the rest, because it would require strength. The most dexterous to make shoes out of bag and coat out of skins, because it would require skill. The best educated to look for iron or lead in the rocks and to plan channels for the irrigation of the fields, because this would require knowledge. But though their labours were thus naturally severed, that small group of shipwrecked men would understand well enough that this speediest progress was to be made by helping each other, not by opposing each other. And they would know that this help could only be properly given so long as they were frank and open in their relations, and the difficulties which each lay under properly explained to the rest, so that any appearance of secrecy or separateness in the actions of any of them would instantly and justly be looked upon with suspicion by the rest, as a sign of some selfish or foolish proceeding on the part of the individual. Fair enough. Any appearance of secrecy or separateness, sign of some selfish or foolish proceeding. Then you have examples. If, for instance, the scientific man were found to have gone out at night, unknown to the rest, to alter the sluices, the others would think, and in all probability rightly think, that he wanted to get the best supply of water to his own field. If the shoemaker refused to show them where the bark grew which he made his handles of, they would naturally think, and in all probability rightly think, that he didn't want them to see how much there was of it, and then he meant to ask from them more corn and potatoes in exchange for his sandals than the trouble of making them deserved. Again, greed comes in. And thus, although each man would have a portion of time to himself, in which he was allowed to do what he chose without let or inquiry, so long as he was working in that particular business which he had undertaken for the common benefit. Any secrecy on his part would be immediately supposed to mean mischief and would require to be accounted for or put an end to. And this all the more because whatever the work might be, certainly there would be difficulties about it, which, when once they were all explained, might be more or less done away with by the help of the rest. So that assuredly if every one of them would advance with his labour not only more happily, but more profitably and quickly, by having no secrets and by frankly bestowing and frankly receiving such help as lay in his way to get or give. So if you're working for the common good, you thrive as a family, otherwise selfishness creeps in. When a dozen men are cast away on an imaginary island, the best educated would look for metals in rock. Why? Because we've already discussed this. Metals can be used to make weapons? No. Such an island probably has unexploited resources? No. He may find it beneath him to dig or cut shows? No. He is suited for such work. He has that knowledge. Hence this. The author states that any appearance of secrecy or separateness would instantly and justly be looked upon with suspicion. From this statement, we may infer that what is secret is not what is separate. No. Secrecy is not exactly the same as separateness, so we're not comparing secrecy or separateness. It is natural to be suspicious of secrecy. Yes, okay. But I think D is the best. It only takes an instant for a relationship to deteriorate. It just, any appearance of secrecy, even if it's one, it would take an instant for a relationship to deteriorate because the trust would be gone. The instance of the shoemaker who refuses to show his source and asks for more corn and potatoes is an example of, guys, it is greed. It's not a strong bargain. It's an unfair practice. Yes. System of barter, all right, but then this is not well deserved. Okay. The intent to make trouble. The writer makes a hypothesis which can be related to. Hypothesis is something which is not proven. Sorry, we missed this. The author's belief is that for progress to happen, for progress to happen, all right, here we are. According to the author, whatever one's work might be, hardships are going to be a part of it. Maybe, maybe not. Not necessarily they're going to be a part of it. One cannot keep complaining. Not really, no. One should expect others to assure of help and advance our labors. Clearly, no. One must offer help to others in order to receive help. That actually is the best answer. That's in fact the entire crux of the passage. Fayaz, I'm not sure which question you're answering. So if you could answer the question number, like if you're answering the second question and your answer is D, then you should write 2D. I'll have a clearer idea then. The author's belief is that for progress to happen, simple guys, this is the main idea of the passage. We should not be cheating. The author's belief is that progress for happen, a team should consist of people with multiple talents. No, not multiple talents. Cooperation among team members is essential. Yes, that is one aspect. One must deal with those who are secretive. Dealing is not the most important part. Transparency among all concerned is mandatory, right? Transparency is the key idea here. Yes, second is D. You're correct. The writer makes a hypothesis which can be related to communities in general. Yeah, this applies to all the communities. Transparency is required. In imaginary island rich with resources, first of all, island may not be imaginary. Second of all, it may not be rich with resources. An ideal world of talented people? No. A primitive and unsophisticated world. So this is beyond contention, guys. I hope this is clear. This is the next passage. Let me show you the questions first. This is the first question. The next question. Third question. Fourth. Fifth. And sixth. Read the passage, please. You have 5 minutes. Okay. A lengthy passage, but an interesting one. Talks about John Muir, Earth, Planet, Universe. He's a traveler. These words are written on the inside cover of the notebook from which the contents of his volume have been taken. They reflect the mood in which the late author and explorer undertook his 1,000-mile walk to the Gulf of Mexico half-century ago. No less does this refreshingly cosmopolitan address, which might have startled any finder of the book, reveal the temper and the comprehensiveness of Mr. Muir's mind. Even at the early age of 29, his eager interest in every aspect of the natural world made him a citizen of the universe. Note, citizen of the universe, because he was interested in nature and nothing else. On these expeditions, he had disciplined himself to endure hardships, for his notebooks disclose the fact that he often went hungry and slept in the woods or on the open prairies with no cover except the clothes he wore. Oftentimes, Mr. Muir wrote in some unpublished biographical notes, I had to sleep out without blankets and also without supper or breakfast, but usually I had no great difficulty in finding a loaf of bread in the widely scattered clearings of the farmers. With one of these backwood loaves, I was able to wander many a long, wild mile, free as the winds in the glorious forests and bogs, gathering plants and feeding on God's abounding, inexhaustible spiritual beauty bread. Only once in my long Canada wanderings was the deep peace of the wilderness savagely broken. It happened in the maple woods about midnight when I was cold and my fire was low. I was awakened by the awfully dismal howling of the wolves and got up in haste to replenish the fire. Had it not been for the accidental injury to his right eye in the month of March 1867, he probably would have started somewhat earlier than he did. In a letter written to Indianapolis friends on the day after the accident, he refers mournfully to the interruption of a long cherished plan. For weeks, he writes, I have daily consulted maps in locating a route through the southern states, the West Indies, South America, and Europe. A botanical journey studied for years. But alas, I am half blind. My right eye, trained to minute analysis, is lost and I have scarce heart to open the other. The injury to his eye proved to be less serious than he had at first supposed. In June, he was writing to a friend, I have been reading and botanizing for some weeks and find that for such work, I am not very much disabled. In an account written after the excursion, he says, I was eager to see Illinois prairies on my way home, so we went to Decatur, near the center of the state. Thence, I botanized once a week on the prairie about 7 miles southwest of Pecatonica. To me, all plants are more precious than before. My poor eye is not better nor worse. A cloud is over it, but in gazing the widest landscape, I am not always sensible of its presence. So, it talks to you about the wonders he experienced while traveling and experiencing nature per se. Let's move on to the questions. John Muir, Earth Planet Muir, wrote this notebook because his love for the wild. He did not have a permanent address, no. He wanted to be a traveler all his life, no. His love for botany, yes, went beyond borders. Nothing could compare to it. He wanted to live in the open all his life, not really. That's very vague. We don't know whether he wanted to live all his life in the open, but we know he did love nature. Which of these did John Muir have no great difficulty in doing? Finding food among the farmers? Yes, he could find some bread at least every other time. Eating regularly every day? No. See, the question is no great difficulty. He did have great difficulty in eating regularly every day. He did not get supper. Sleeping without blankets or on certain nights? Chasing wolves that howl through the nights? No. He had no great difficulty in finding food among the farmers. How did the experience with the nature affect John Muir? He felt spiritually fulfilled. Yes, towards the end, it clearly says spiritually fulfilled. He became a better botanist. Maybe he did. We can't say this from the passage. He felt successful after collecting rare plants. There is no mention of success, guys. He enjoyed the breeze in the glorious forest. That's not the effect nature had on John Muir. He felt spiritually fulfilled is the right answer. According to the passage, in what way was Muir affected by his injury? His injury eye healed very slowly? No. He could not open his left eye during exploration? In fact, he did open his left eye during exploration. His eyesight was affected, yes, but he was able to carry on. Correct. He took a long time to consult maps and study them. No, his eyesight was affected. Despite it, he was able to carry on. When Mewis said that he botanized, he meant that botanized is studying plants. Studied plants and made notes of them? No. Studied plants in their natural habitat? Yes. C says studying plants during his exploration? No, but we are talking about botanized. What does botany mean? Studied plants and classified them? Not really. Natural habitat is extremely important here. Which of these following sentences is not true? Not true. Mind you, out of these sentences, these 4 sentences, 3 will actually be true. Let's see what all are true. John Muir explored several new places even on his way home. Absolutely. There was a cloud over the landscape he travelled? No, there was no cloud over the landscape he travelled. There was a cloud over his right eye, not the landscape. B looks dubious. See, he was committed to being a botanist more than ever. Absolutely. He recorded his adventures in the notebook. True that. Clearly, B is not true. Which brings us to the end of this class, guys. I hope I've been able to make some sense of it. I will see you again in the next class. Till then, take care. Cheers.